Commissioners, good morning. District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4,
Here.
District 4.
He said here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Morning.
District 5,
Here.
District 6,
Present.
District 7,
Absent today.
District 8,
She's here.
District 9,
Will be late.
District 10, District 11, vacant. District 12, District 13,
Here.
District 14, and place 15.
I'm here.
You have quorum, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Messina. Good morning, Commissioners. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2024, 9:04 a.m. Welcome to the briefing of the Dallas City Plan Commission. Commissioners, as always, this is a time for questions for staff. Let's keep our comments and positions to the hearing this afternoon. Let's start off with the miscellaneous docket, the minor amendments. Commissioners, we are now briefing those on request. If we have any questions or a request to brief items 2 or 3. Any questions? Okay. Nothing for you, Ms. Mormon. Thank you. Let's go to our one miscellaneous item under advisement. I believe that this item has not been briefed before. Okay. Commissioners, let's take a 5-minute break. We have an issue with the doors. They're upstairs. It's 9:05. We'll be back in 10 minutes. I think we're on the miscellaneous item under advisement. Has not been briefed before. We will brief that today. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I could. Okay. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. The record reflect that Commissioner Hampton joined us online at 9:03 a.m. Good morning.
And is now at the Horseshoe. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Here she is. I was just reading your text. I'm online. It was 10 minutes ago. Wow. That's CPC magic, folks. Good morning.
This is case M223-033. This is a request for a minor amendment to an existing development plan on property zoned PD Plan Development District number 166. This is currently the Nexus Recovery Center, approximately 10.54 acres, and it is in Council District 7. This is the location and zoning map. So the location is east of downtown, located on the west line of La Prada Drive, south of Blythe Drive. This is the aerial view of the area. So the proposed amendment is to amend Area 1 development plan. Area 2 conceptual plan will not have any development taking place at this moment. So the proposed is to amend the Area 1 development plan portion of Exhibit 166A to modify the buildable footprint at 3 locations, reconfigure an internal driveway, revise the parking layout to allow fire lane access, and to accommodate the modified building footprint. Again, there will be no changes for the Area 2 conceptual plan portion of the exhibit. This is the existing Exhibit 166A. This is where the Area 1 development plan is, so this is where the amendment is taking place. And then this is the Area 2 conceptual plan. This is the proposed Exhibit 166A, so the amendment is taking place here. This is generally the area where the proposed changes are taking place. This is from the existing Exhibit 166A to the area that's being amended for Area 1 development plan. So as you can see, this area is being amended. It's a proposed building. And then we have another area right here, which is south of it, and then to the west of it, another portion right here. And staff recommendation is approval.
Thank you very much. Questions, commissioners? Any questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, let's swing back to item number 1 and discuss our briefing of the update to Forward Dallas. I think we all received this proposed schedule. So just as a summary, at our last hearing, we decided to have the 2 working sessions on March 28th and April 11th from 9 to 2. Those were hard-coded in, and now I'd like to discuss potential dates for public hearings. One option, commissioners, if we have the schedule and the availability to go ahead and stay in on the 11th, begin the day with the working session, and then end the day with a public hearing. Any thoughts on any of these dates, commissioners? Or if you want, we can kind of digest this calendar a little bit and circle back on it. Commissioner Kingston, please.
I don't know about the rest of folks, but I mean, I have another job and I've got stuff booked going into April, and I don't know that I can take a whole day every week to do this on such short notice. I mean, this just seems very aggressive to me. And we had a Forward Dallas meeting last night in my neighborhood where we had probably 60, 75 people show up, and they were pretty frustrated that they didn't feel like they were having enough time to really digest the current version and give feedback. So I would vote for pushing this out a little bit.
And I can also explain the schedule that's
Please.
also being shared. So on the screen and also printed out on your desks are the kind of proposed next few months of the PPC review time. So looking at March 21st, that's today, just talking through the schedule. Like Chair, you mentioned, we have 2 workshops that are designated to be from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. That was confirmed during the quorum of the body last meeting. In addition to that, we had a conversation about when and how should the public incorporate or be part of that discussion. A few things came up during our last meeting. If we want to have the public come in front of this body while we're having the discussion, doing that sooner than later makes most sense, instead of this body deciding language during the next few months and the public not being able to provide their feedback until late in the game. So we want to make sure that they have as much time to come and provide their comments through either the public hearing or however we want to structure it as soon as possible. So again, going back, the only 2 dates that are confirmed are the 28th and the 11th. There's not a proposal of having something every week all day. The only 2 dates that were confirmed were on March 28th and April 11th. Now, if you all feel maybe after the first meeting that we have, if we need more meetings to be able to get the content reviewed, we can do that. So that's why these are those on the calendar. That's on orange. Those are proposed unconfirmed dates if needed. But just to clarify, we only have 2 confirmed meetings with this body, and that's March 28th, that's April 11th. So I can answer any
Commissioner
questions
Hanson,
related
please.
to that.
Well, I think similar to Commissioner Kingston, I've attended meetings and heard a lot of feedback. I think one of the comments I'm hearing as you spoke to Mr. Agu, is that while workshops are being held, this body isn't getting the full public input. And there was a question about if that needed to be sooner in the process as we are evaluating, that we have that information directly from the public to incorporate into our deliberations as well. Again, I think many of us are attending workshops, hearing from the community, but I don't think all the members are necessarily hearing all of the same things together. And just wonder if that's something that should be advanced as well, and whether it's part of the meeting on the 28th, or I know we have a standing CPC meeting on April 4th, if we dedicate some time for that. I know we have many other things coming up on our docket, but just want to share with the commissioners that's some of the feedback that I'm hearing from the community as well.
Any other questions or comments? I think essentially that's what we're trying to do, Commissioner Hampton. I completely agree with you. I think that the sooner we get folks in and listen to them here around the horseshoe, the better. It's just a question of all of us looking at our calendar and finding a way to, couple of dates, probably in the evening is where we get the most response, most availability from folks. Why don't we, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a few things. Just want to also clarify to one, this current draft has been out since December. And think as you all continue to have meetings with your districts, I think one, we encourage that. We want you all to continue doing that. What we're hearing from the community, those who speak to us too, they want to be able to come before this body and provide their feedback as well. So in addition to those individual workshops that you all are scheduling, and we encourage you to continue doing that, community members who have provided input to our team and to you all would like to come to this body and also provide that feedback on record. So in terms of being able to have you all hear from the community as soon as possible, what we're wanting to do is confirm how should that happen. So since we have the confirmed dates of March 28th and April 11th as workshops, a few options in terms of starting to get the community's feedback, looking at April, because we want to be able to kind of have enough time to promote and bring the public into knowledge about these workshops. Is one, having maybe a public comment period after that 9 to 2 time. So again, the suggestion was having a time certain date that the public would know they could come to a certain time, know that it provide their comments, and know in a particular day they'll be able to do that. So we have suggested here, if there is a time certain period, it could be from 6 to 9 p.m. Another comment that came up during the last meeting was there could be an opening or discussion about those who come in at a different time. So if we need to move that to maybe 2 times certain time during the morning and the evening, we could talk about that. But those are the options that you all provided us to investigate, and what we're showing is a proposed schedule of what the public and how the public could engage this committee as you all are reviewing the document on those 2 workshop dates.
Vice Chair Rubin.
I think it's incredibly important that we have a period for public comment outside of the standard workday. I remember on WOCAP, which proved to be pretty contentious too, one of the big, I'll even say criticisms of the process was that a lot of folks who were interested weren't able to take off work and get down to City Hall to provide their feedback, or even, hop on a Zoom or whatever it was, because I think this was, during the pandemic. So I think it's absolutely essential that we have at least one, if not more, of these public comment periods being from 6 to 9. And as a practical matter, looking at April 11th, I know we have it slated for 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. right now, but it might make more sense for us to simply, do it all in one fell swoop, going, consecutively, starting in the early afternoon, maybe a break for dinner around 5. And
right. Yeah, so good. Thanks for that point. So April 11th, although we did, you all provided us that we should have 2 meetings, again, April 28th, March 28th, April 11th, from 9 to 2 p.m. like you just mentioned, the suggestion on April 11th, if we move that to the afternoon time, maybe 1 till 5, and then have the public comments follow right after that, for kind of two reasons: making sure it kind of flows into that public hearing process and ensuring that there's a quorum while the public speaks. So if we do decide, or this body decides to have public comments during that same day or that same meeting, another suggestion would be moving the time of the workshop to be 1 to 5, and then the public comments would still be that time certain, 6 to 9. So they just flow into the same meeting. So that'll be something that we would want you all to help us confirm or vote upon in terms of how you would like that particular meeting to occur.
Commissioner Kingston.
Well, I think my point is we set our calendar at the beginning of the year so those of us with other things to do have some lead time to plan. And what I'm hearing is staff's decided they want to get this to council by June, even though we've been working on this for years. And so we're developing an aggressive schedule for the rest of us to get it to June. And if that means CPC has to meet every week during the week, well, that's just how it is. And I object to that. I don't think that's respectful of our time or our other commitments. And so, I mean, I just can't do this. Maybe that is by design: less commissioners, less public comment, less time. I mean, that's certainly how it worked in 06. So maybe that's to everybody's or somebody's benefit. But I'm on the record of saying I think this plan needs a lot more work. Last night's meeting in my community didn't go well. There was a lot of confusion about whose ball this court's even in, whether staff is still working on it, whether we're working on it, who's on first. And if we're supposed to be doing it, I would like some input, but saying you better carve out an entire day of your life for the next month and nights, and everybody else better, get that on their calendar so that we can meet an artificial deadline when we've been working on this for years, just doesn't seem very fair to those of us sitting around the horseshoe, our families, or other commitments, or the public. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Vice Chair Rubin.
I don't think I know there are possibilities of meetings on special called meetings on April 18th, May 2nd, and May 9th, but I don't think that necessarily the intent of this document is to have a special called meeting on each of those dates. We want to make sure that we work diligently on this. And I don't think I would want to meet, on all of these dates, either, considering my schedule, but at the same time, our rules and our, code allows a body to call special meetings to address important issues, and we've done it in the past on other, really contentious, matters. So I do want to be respectful of everyone's time, but if we have to add in, possibly one additional special called meeting to, see this very important, to continue to give this very important matter, due attention, I think that's what we should do, and yeah.
And I think to add, I want to call on our attorney just to confirm how kind of specially called meetings are done through our kind of legal process. If you wouldn't mind just providing that feedback.
Sure. So Chapter 8 empowers the chair to call special meetings, or it empowers 1/3 of the body to direct the chair to call special called meetings.
And that was done during our last meeting, which were those two dates, March 28th and April 11th.
Commissioner Hampton.
I don't disagree. I think we do need special call meetings. I do think they have to be outside of this. I don't know how we realistically, I think the chair made a great observation. We're getting through such small pieces of these. I think one of the things is I'm trying to look at this and understand how we're going to digest this information, make sure that the community knows what we're considering. One of the things I'm observing as I'm trying to work through these dates that are proposed is how the public is going to know what we are considering. And is there time, because I'm presuming all of us are sending comments, taking in all this, how is that going to get integrated, distributed to the public for them to have an informed consideration and come back before us? Because it just, I mean, I'm like all of us, I'm trying to make sure that I'm here, I'm present, I'm understanding and engaging in this conversation. I think we all are. I'm just trying to get my head around how we're going to do it and stay on top of both our cases here, other commitments with family that we all have. So if we look at these dates, you know, I do think it may be a challenge on the 11th for many of us, simply because of the timing. So if that put our first public comments on the 18th, which is a date that's proposed, I think my question would be, how do we then look through the balance of the meeting dates? And are there other dates that need to be on here is, I think, my question for the body.
Right, and I'm also, great comments. So as we look as we look at April and May, all the orange, again, all confirmed, just there for, to see how your schedules align with that. So going back in terms of, you know, what we're wanting to do and what we are asking the body, as we are looking at two things, council, you know, being, having a recess in summertime, and also to the Fort Dallas contract that is concluding around that time as well. Just being conscious of their time, budget, and your time. We want to be able to make sure we can have as much time to talk through this plan. Again, we came before this body in January, and we want to get more feedback than what we've had so far. So if more time is needed, let's talk through where that can fit. But want to be clear in terms of when that is, how much time you all need, and how those meetings should occur. This is just a proposal for discussion purposes, but we need feedback to be able to align with what you all are needing schedule-wise. So for example, if the April 11th date, if the quorum can't attend that date, we can look at, like you said, April 18th, or thinking about maybe other days in between to do that. Going back to our last committee, the CLUP, we did meet, I think it was 2 full days, and they did the same thing. And they looked through the document page by page. So we can craft this discussion to be different, where we're highlighting the major changing points, or if you want to go page by page, we can do that. But just to say that the body preceding this one did the same thing, 2 full days, page by page, and we provide those comments too as well.
Commissioner Hall.
What happens if you don't make the June deadline for city council?
That's a great point. So in thinking about council and the project contract, so let's say we don't hit June, the project contract gets terminated, there's no more funds for that. Council would have to discuss how do we either extend their contract, find more money for that. So realistically, if that doesn't occur, this project would probably get pushed till the end of the year in terms of procurement, in terms of getting time on their schedule, in terms of getting all that kind of restarted. Talk to our business office. Typically it takes 6 months to kind of get a contract going. We want to avoid that, especially a lot of the concerns from environmental justice and other components of the plan that what they speak about, continuing to push that and delay that, that's a concern that they have as well.
Commissioner Carpenter, please.
I can understand, you know, those of us who are on CLUP or people who are staff who have been working on this project forever, you know, have a certain degree of, you know, familiarity with it and are ready to move on. But I think we have to realize that, you know, for this body and especially for the public, I don't want to say for this body, but for the public, this is just beginning to be on their radar. And when we speak about the 2 full, almost full day workshops that we had at CLUP to go through the document, I mean, that was after many hours of discussion. So I really think this compressed, accelerated time schedule, even though I understand the implications for the consulting, for the contract, I think we're sending the wrong message to the community. Because that's a lot of the feedback that I'm getting is that, you know, we're being rushed, we don't know what we're agreeing to, this is very important, and when people start feeling rushed and bullied, it gets their hackles up, and then they go, well, I just don't want any part of it.
Right.
And so this compressed schedule will be difficult for me, I know, and I'd really like to change the impression that we're getting and make sure that we have adequate time for public comment. And at this point, I don't see any realistic way this is going to get to council in June. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You guys know time is very important. Being an employee and commissioner, I have to take vacation to be here, and 16 hours of vacation is expensive because I give so much time. But neither here nor there, that's personal and probably not the issue. I do think a lot of what I'm hearing from my constituents, because of the short timeline, is to kill Forward Dallas. That is not my goal. That is not what I want. I do not want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But if we have this tight schedule, there's no way I have time to convince my neighbors that this is a good plan, to ingest it, digest it, and then spit it back out to them so they can understand it in a clear way. Most of them have an understanding already, and it's going to be hard to change their mind in this short amount of time. So I would have hoped that we could work with council to figure out some budgeting issues on this and extend it a little bit, but that's my 2 cents.
And a comment is from staff. I keep, just be honest, I feel like I keep dancing around a few core questions we're trying to ask. So, one, if, in terms of this thing seeming tight or short or whatnot, I'm curious for this body, what is a time, what's a good day, how much time do we need to review this properly? Because I feel like we keep saying it's rushed, but I don't have a clear direction. So if you all can help me and help our team get that so we can provide a schedule that makes sense to you, that would be very beneficial. So if you're saying if March 8th and March 28th is a date that doesn't make sense, we can talk about that. If it's a particular day that doesn't make sense, please let us know so we can make those corrections. But just saying it's a rushed date and with not feedback, we can't do anything with that. We need your feedback to be able to make this work with you all.
And I would just add that it's not just 2 meetings that we're talking to the community and that we're taking input. Commissioner Kingston referenced a meeting last night, and Commissioner Hampton was there as well. We are happy to have those meetings throughout the next 2 months of this process, in which we would then have special called meetings during that process as well. So it's not meant to be a rushed process where there's only a finite amount of time that that the public could comment or could come and provide that input. It's meant to be a more robust process that just has some special called meetings for a CPC, where if there are additional things where you say, we would love you to come out and talk to our community or our neighborhood, we are more than happy to do that, to get that input, to then come back at a special called meeting and bring that to your attention to say, Commissioner Hall, we talked with so-and-so, Commissioner Kingston, we talked with so-and-so, and they brought this up. And that's that special called meeting for us to then bring that public input to CPC if those community members are not able to attend those special called meetings.
Commissioner Forsyth.
My main request, Chairman Shadid, would be to allow us to have the public comments before we complete our deliberations. And I look at the schedule here. We have the meeting on Thursday, March 28th to go over the place types. And then we have the meeting in the afternoon or in the morning or the afternoon on Thursday the 11th to do the implementation plan. And then we have the public comments after that. So, and we don't have any more meetings scheduled, with the CPC I would think that we would want to hear from the public before we finalize our deliberations.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And just to clarify, Commissioner, Forward Dallas is on our agenda at every CPC hearing moving forward. In fact, it's on the agenda today for more than just this discussion. And I agree with you. I think the sooner we get folks in here, we will know what the latter part of this calendar here, because today we're not deciding when we're going to vote on it. Today we're deciding, we're just having a discussion and we're taking input in terms of when we want to hear from folks. And I would rather have it sooner than later. And I'm looking at the evening of the 18th and May 2nd. We go ahead and schedule those, call those, and allow folks to come in. And once we get that input, I think the rest of it will hopefully be clear. Vice Chair Rubin?
Just a quick clarification. I know you referenced May 2nd, which is on our document as a recommendation date, but are you saying that's a recommendation date or just a date for additional public comment?
No, just public comment.
Just public comment.
Just public
Okay.
comment, yes.
That's
yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
My apologies, yes. Public comments for on 6 to 9 on the 18th, 6 to 9 on the 2nd. Commissioner Hampton?
Can we move the discussion on the place types to the 11th and then move the implementation plan discussion to into May, like May 2nd? So that we've, heard from the public before we, finalize our implementation plan?
Just confirm what you said. You're just saying, could we move the implementation plan discussion to May 2nd?
I apologize, Mr. Agu. Could you say that one more time? I did not. I was making notes and.
No, I believe I heard from Commissioner Forsyth the suggestion of moving the April 11th implementation plan discussion to May 2nd. That's what I'm hearing?
Well, I think what I'd like to recommend, Commissioner, is to keep those two that are hard-coded in with the flexibility to add another special workshop after we get the public input. And I think that's what you're referencing. Once we have those two dates, we could always add another one.
Right.
Well, I'm suggesting this also not only to get the public feedback before we finalize our deliberations, but also to spread it out a little bit, to be, accommodating to Melissa and folks like Melissa and myself who work during the day too. Again, the thinking is that we have one major meeting in maybe April and then one major meeting in May. And so we're not like doing everything, just within like a 2-week period of time.
That's true.
I don't think, if I understand correctly, we're not finalizing place types, descriptions of the maps on the Thursday, March 28th meeting. We're not finalizing the implementation plan at those meetings. That's just an opportunity for discussion. That finalization part will happen
Yes.
after those
Great.
public comments.
Let me clarify that. Perfect. So March 28th, that's going to be a time to discuss the place types and the place type map. So when we get that feedback, staff is going to go and make edits and tweaks to the document based on the feedback that you all provided to us during that meeting. April 11th, similarly, staff will have this conversation about the implementation plan, get that feedback, implement that into the plan, and the hope is to have CPC revised draft based on your feedback by the end of April. Once that's been incorporated, then that will get shared and disseminated to you all and the public can then come as well after that meeting to have comments on that version that you all confirm and clarify and help and develop by the end of April. And there'll be 1, 2, however many public hearings that you all feel are adequate to provide comments on that revised document. So the 2 sessions, 2 workshops that we have here are to focus on developing the language on the place type descriptions and map and the implementation plan. We as staff will get those comments, create a revised draft based on your direction, publish that for you all to review, the public to review, and then there'll be another opportunity for the public to provide comments. While those workshops are occurring, our questions are, how would you like the public to be part of that discussion? So similar to when you have a zoning case, it gets briefed, you discuss it, and then the public comes and has an open dialogue about it. It could be the same thing where you discuss the particular plan document and you hear from the public that same day. That's a suggestion on April 11th. Or if they want to have public hearings on the other days in between the workshops, we can do that too as well.
Commissioner Carpenter.
I just want to add that based on the experience that I had with CLUP, I think it's going to be unrealistic that one workshop, whatever date it is going to get, I mean, a 5-hour workshop is not going to get this group through all of the place types and the map. I would fully expect that to take at least 2.
Right. No, good point. So 2 things a little different. Thank you for that feedback. I think the club, they were creating those descriptions and those place types. I think this one, like when we had the first meeting 2 weeks ago, we went through those first 2 place types, basically 5 minutes each. So I think there are a few place types that we need to delve into a bit more, but in general, those place types, based on the feedback we had so far, those have gone pretty quickly because there's already text there, and you all can provide us with that feedback before those meetings too. So there's a lot of opportunity to have the text review and tweaking, but based on what we've heard so far, there are only a few handful of place types that need probably the entirety of the meeting to focus on, and then we can get the feedback on the other place types if we focus on those first.
Commissioner Kingston.
Thank you. I think something we need to consider as we're planning these meetings is having a little time between the meetings to digest and discuss in our own communities the changes, because, you know, just because staff gets it to us before the next meeting, we need to have enough time to actually review it and digest it and have conversations in our communities. And the other thing I might suggest is, as we're looking at times to have these workshops between ourselves, instead of looking at times in the middle of the workday, we might look at evenings or maybe even a weekend, maybe a Saturday. I mean, I'm hearing Commissioner Herbert say he has to take vacation time, and I know others of us, you know, looking at my calendar, and you know, I'm already going to have to find someone to cover some stuff. Shame on me for missing the last week. Because stuff got scheduled. So maybe that is a solution if folks are willing to consider that. I still think that this schedule is very aggressive. I hear what you're saying about this contract, but this is a making that's not ours. This is a situation that we weren't consulted on. And it's a schedule that is being presented to us now, not even 3 months ago when we could have laid out a calendar. I mean, we set our calendar in December, and at that point, you knew your contract was ending, and you could have said, hey, this is on the horizon, this is something we probably need to build into the calendar. Instead, this is getting presented to us now, and we're being asked to schedule all these meetings in the next, 6 weeks. I just don't think that's fair to this body or to the public or to all of the other commitments the rest of us around the horseshoe have.
Any other comments, commissioners? Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that the most important next step is to start taking public input, except I think that there's an issue here with the May 2nd date, and that is that we have a regularly scheduled CPC hearing on that date. And, what's that?
I agree. I noted them at the bottom.
Yeah,
because I ran out of
I didn't
space.
catch it until this very moment, and I don't see how we're going to put those two together. Otherwise, we're going to be taking public input possibly till 1 in the morning. So let's do April 18th and May 9th. Public comments from 6 to 9 on April 18th and May 9th.
And a question, would you all
Yes,
want,
sir.
would you all want to have the public provide comments on April 11th or just purely workshop based? Because I think when we confirmed that.
Just workshop.
Just workshop?
Just workshop.
Okay.
So we're going to have those 2 primary meetings before we ever get to a public comment.
That's correct.
I
That's
disagree with that, Chairman
Thank you.
Shadid.
Vice Chair Rubin? Okay. 18th and the 9th. Okay, commissioners, let's get back to our. Yes.
Yes, our secretary is going to go over kind of what we just documented. Or I can say that too as well. So just to confirm what we have said, March 28th, that's going to be a workshop, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. April 11th, that's going to be a workshop only, where we are discussing the document without public comments. April 18th. Excuse me, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. On the 11th and the 28th. And then April 18th, it's a Thursday, we would open up public comments. We currently have 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Time certain meetings for the public. That would also occur on Thursday, May 9th. There'll be 2 public comment periods just for hearing what the public has to say regarding that. Yes.
So on April 18th, there will not be a workshop during the day.
So there currently isn't scheduled a workshop, but based on, from staff's perspective, and also hearing from the Commissioner Carpenter.
There's not a scheduled workshop on
No,
on
there's
April
not.
18th.
No, there's no scheduled workshop,
No.
but
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think you misspoke there. You said there's already a scheduled workshop.
I said there's not a.
Okay, my apologies.
No.
Yeah.
So there's not a scheduled workshop, but based on the feedback that we're hearing, if there is need to have additional comments from this body or continue to review the document, those meetings or those dates are open for that earlier in the day. So I guess with this body, after we go through March 28th, April 11th, if we need more time to discuss with you all, would you all like to use those placeholders before the public comments to continue the discussion with Fort Dallas? Would that be okay on April 18th and May 9th?
Can you repeat your question, sir?
Go ahead.
Just a thought, when on our regularly called meetings, I consider those days shot for personal and work purposes.
Correct.
We have that April 4th date right there where we suggest, maybe there's an hour, but, sometimes we have to work late. We may want to see how much of a continued workshop we might be able to do on the place types. The place types, overflows on April 4th.
Yeah, so April 4th, thank you for bringing that up too. So the regularly scheduled meetings, this time where I'm discussing with you all, I'll likely have an hour with you all. We could continue having any discussions that weren't concluded in the previous meeting. We can wrap those up or continue those on the regular scheduled meeting during this time, just a mini version of our workshop. We could do the same with additional regularly scheduled meetings from now to May if needed, in addition to those workshop full-day meetings that we talked about. Thanks for that clarification.
Excellent point. We also have the flexibility of doing that on May 2nd.
Correct, yes.
Spacina, please.
Okay, so, excuse me, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I get this right.
Okay, now, so I can go through that again, too, if you want me to.
Okay, so March 28th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're going to have workshop. April 4th, we'll have a discussion, about an hour. April 11th,
Yeah, no, the April 4th is just a regular CPC day where Forward Dallas is already scheduled to be discussed. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
thank you. April 11th is a workshop from 9 to 2.
Correct.
Are we having public comment at all?
No.
So that's a no. Okay, and the implementation plan from 1 to 5?
Oh, no, sorry. So the 1 to 5 was an optional time tweak if we were to have public comments, but it'll still be implementation plan workshop, April 11th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay. April 18th, evening, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., public comment.
Correct.
Thursday, May 2nd, nothing, because we have CPC meeting date. There will be a follow-up discussion, though? Our
Yes,
regular.
although Forward Dallas will be on the
Our regular
agenda on
Forward
May
Dallas.
2nd. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And Thursday, May 9th, evening, 6 p.m., recommendation to council.
And public hearing, no. So it would be another public comment period as well.
Public comment period.
Yes, the same. So we'll be taking public comments on the 18th, April 18th, and May 9th, 6 to 9 p.m.
And then what that would do, just looking at that last line, the deliverables, the tentative deliverables, likely having a revised CPC draft sometime early May, just to accommodate the public comments and moving a few meetings into May. So instead of having a revised CPC draft April 26th, which is again tentative, we would look to having a draft early May after we get those comments from the public May 9th. So a few weeks tweak, and we'll provide those updates next time we meet before our workshop.
Okay.
All right, so that is all that I have.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you during lunch if we have time. Appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioners. Let's go back into the docket. I believe that we did case number 4. The zoning cases under advisement, Commissioners. At this point, we have 5, 6, 7, and 8, and they are all still on the consent. We'll begin with case number 5. Ms. Garza, good morning. Oh, okay. 5 may be taken off consent, Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner.
Good morning. Item
morning.
number 5 is KZ223219. The request is an application for a PA parking district on property zone subdistrict B2 within Plan Development District number 749, the Baylor University Medical Center Special Purpose District with a D liquor control overlay and an LORD Limited Office District with a D liquor control overlay and an LO3 district. It is located on the northwest line of Worth Street, southwest of North Haskell Avenue. It's approximately 26,136 square feet. This is a location map. This is the aerial map. And then this is a zoning map. Surrounding uses. It's a medical clinic or ambulatory surgical center to the northwest. A medical clinic or ambulatory surgical center to the south, as well to the south east. And then there's a restaurant without drive-in service and a service parking to the north. The area request is currently undeveloped and zoned Subdistrict B2 within Plan Development District number 749, the Baylor University Medical Center. And then the applicant proposes to develop the site with a surface parking lot for a proposed medical clinic or ambulatory surgical center used across the alley to the northwest. Thus, they are requesting a PA parking district. The Dallas Development Code as amended establishes that a PA parking district must be either contiguous to or perpendicular across an adjoining street or alley from a main use. A PA district requires approval of a site plan. These are some of the site photos. On-site looking northwest, looking northeast, looking southeast, looking southwest. Surrounding uses, on-site looking north, on-site looking east, looking southeast, looking south, looking west, looking southwest, looking northwest, looking northeast. And then these are the development standards of what's existing and what they're now proposing is a PA district. And then, so this is originally the site plan that was attached to the docket. However, they did send a revision last week after the docket was published. However, we did receive the latest revision today, this morning, which I believe was sent to everyone. So the difference between the last revised is that they now are including the minimum height of the screening hedge, and they did, so they added notes clarifying minimum screening hedge height of 42 inches parking lot lighting and pedestrian lighting, and then they shifted one tree to the parking to be included in the tree planting zone, meeting the PD 749 requirements. It is within the 360 plan. The proposed land use will serve the new development of the ambulatory surgical center across the alley to the northwest. The use of the parking lot allows the utilization of the property on the south corner of Junior Street and Haskell Avenue. And then staff recommendation is approved subject to the site plan as briefed.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hampton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Garza, for literally picking that up. So I know you just received that this morning. Is it correct that part of the Baylor PD includes a pedestrian linkage street along North Street? Are you aware of that in PD 749?
I am not aware of that.
Okay, and well, the provisions of a pedestrian linkage street are you aware that the reason why the applicant has revised the site plan is to reflect those design standards in the site plan that's before us today?
I was not aware until it was revised.
Thank you. And that there's also provisions within that PD that speak to how surface parking lots should be developed, particularly when they're along those linkage streets to help promote walkability, shade standards, pedestrian lighting, and those are some of the items that are reflected in the site plan that's before us. Is that fair? Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes.
Thank you. And then because this is a P district, we are allowed to include the site plan as a part of that, or part of the zoning consideration.
Yes, because it's a PA district.
Okay.
It's a requirement.
And I know we've got some trees that are indicated on here. That's really something that will be determined at the time of permitting, but we're able to include it on the site plan just to give everyone certainty on that it's meeting the standards that otherwise would be required per the PD. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And one final question. In your staff report, I just want to make a clarification. When you did your parking numbers, and I think it's because the ambulatory surgical center is not part of this request because it's within the Baylor PD. Is that correct? You've got a summary on page 5.4 that talks about the number of spaces that the ambulatory surgical center requires, the number of spaces for this surface parking lot, and that math doesn't necessarily work, but the ambulatory surgical center, as a part of the separate Baylor PD, has a special purpose parking district. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay, I can ask the applicant if we need to do that. I think any of my commissioners who read that and wondered why the math didn't work, it's because it's not part of this request, but it's also because it's covered within that PD. So just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes, I did get the information from the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Garza. Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of the city attorney?
Absolutely, please.
Mr. Moore, we received a revised site plan this morning that Ms. Garza has briefed. There's also community discussion on a good neighbor agreement. Do we need to have the applicant state that on the record and remove this from consent, or can it be as briefed?
It's cleaner, Commissioner, to remove it from the consent and do it as briefed.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. If we may hear this individually, please.
Of course.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Thank you again, Ms. Garza.
Ms. Garza, I noticed on the site plan that this parking lot shows a dumpster. I don't think I've ever seen a dumpster on a freestanding parking lot before. Could you, do you know what the purpose is there?
I did ask the applicant, and they mentioned that it is going to be part of what they're building adjacent to the alley, and that's why they put it in.
And are they required to get a waiver for that?
I am not aware.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hampton, of course.
I was just going to note, I did ask a similar question to the applicant, and I believe they can speak to it. There is such a thing as a dumpster waiver. I learned about that this week. So.
We'll ask Mr. Ruig this afternoon, Commissioners. Any other questions on this item? So we'll take that one off consent. Any other questions, Commissioners? Okay, let's go to case number 6, please. Thank you, Ms. Garza. Good morning, Mr. Pepe.
Good morning. Looks good online. Okay. So item 6 is Z22324, and it's located off of Preston Road in North Dallas. And that slide, this has been notified differently, and of course you may know, but this is a new sub-area in Tract 4, Plan Development District number 314, the Preston Center Special Purpose District. It has been re-notified as such, and it's on the north line of Colgate Avenue between Westchester Drive and Preston Road, 3.4 acres. And the purpose of this request is to allow for modified development standards primarily related to allowable uses, parking, and sidewalks to allow the replacement of a building for private school use. And so here's the private school in question as it exists today. And so to the north, there's two office high-rises. There's a remote community center that's associated with this property. To the west, there are properties outside city limit to the west, south, and east. Here's the property as it exists today with its surroundings. And the PD is from 1989. Tract 4 is currently in Tract 4, and it's currently developed with that church and private school uses. Generally, the tract defaults to MU2. Private school is, of course, not permitted by right in that MU2, but the provisions would allow them to, the existing private school use by right includes improved sidewalks, traffic management plan, and street furniture and shared parking, all of those being kind of standard conditions that we'd see for schools built today so they can replace their building. Here is property from Colgate, looking northeast on Colgate, looking northwest on Colgate. I think this is one of the primary entrances to the school. Then going around, that's actually on Preston, looking west towards the entrance of the church portion of the property, looking west down Colgate. That is the building to be replaced primarily under the proposed development plan. And that fronts Colgate. We're going to turn the corner from Colgate and go north a little bit. Again, that's the building to be replaced. And that's the play area as it exists today. Then back on Preston, it's the office high-rise to the north. Just looking at Preston, sidewalk within the city of Dallas. Looking east across Preston at outside of city limit property. Looking south, outside city limit, outside city limit. Looking at the alley that kind of is to the west of this subject property, as well as the remote community center associated with this same facility. And the development plan. Development plan shows the expansion building or the replacement building in relation to its building it's replacing, the church as well. And they will now have a traffic management plan. They did not before. Has their pickup options where they queue through their other remote community center site. And there are no changes to the basic yard lot and space of Tract 4. They do allow that private school use by right, and if they should develop that, they do have to prove that they have a certain degree of sidewalk, rebuild some sidewalk, and install street furniture. As described here, Westchester would likely get a new 6-foot sidewalk. They have 8-foot sidewalks on Colgate and Preston. Those are unobstructed, and we like to maintain those at a minimum. And street furniture is going to be located near their portion where they're expanding in Westchester. So staff recommendation is approval subject to a development plan, a traffic management plan, and conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe. I think maybe we ought to say that the reason that the current zoning does not allow a private school, the private school actually existed before the zoning went into effect. Private school was built in 1948.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
That's right. And then the PD's from 89, and then I don't think schools were, if I'm not mistaken, they weren't taken out of by right until the 87 code. So yeah, it's
Okay.
been around a while.
So this is just sort of rectifying an older property, older building with the new existing codes?
Yes, and so they can replace that building.
Correct. And I'd like to point out, too, that the building they're tearing down is going to be replaced on the same site?
Yes.
With a slightly larger building?
Pretty similar footprint, but yeah,
Pretty similar
about
footprint.
right on, sits on the same site as the one in the westernmost part of their site, yeah.
Correct. And then none of the traffic for drop-off and pickup is going to take place on Preston or any major thoroughfare. It's all on side streets.
Yeah, it's not allowed, it's not going to be on any City of Dallas right away.
Yeah.
It'll be mostly on their alley, their kind of drive behind their school, and I understand they have an agreement with City University Park.
Okay.
For anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, sir, Commissioner Herbert.
Yeah, so I frequent this place a lot, and I know that there is a lot of traffic in the afternoons currently. Will this help reduce that traffic pattern on those side streets that currently exist? It took me 45 minutes one day to get out of parking there.
Yes, it looks like because they'll add some double stacking on site, they're moving around, they're starting to queue further back. There is no traffic management plan today. I'm sure they planned for it informally, but now there's a traffic management plan. They're going to have double stacking on their remote community center alley and then through the back of their site. So I certainly think it should improve it. They're not expanding enrollment either. So just
And
better
are
managed.
they expanding parking at all?
They're not expanding their parking.
Okay.
No,
Because
should maintain as it is.
parking on Sunday is tough, but neither here nor there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Herbert. I also visit that site quite a bit on Sundays. Commissioner Hall.
Yeah, in answer to that, immediately adjacent to this property is the Chase Bank, and the church has a church actually owns the property that Chase Bank is on, and so they have a parking agreement so they can utilize the bank's parking garage. They can utilize a certain portion of the bank's surface parking as well.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's good to know because I thought I was parking illegally. Thank you, Brother Hall.
Never.
I have run to my car many a times there, thinking it's not going to be there. Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Any other questions on this case, Commissioners? Thank you very much, Mr. Pavic. Go to case number 7.
Morning. Share my screen for a moment. Are you able to see the screen?
We can.
Great. So this is case Z234130. It's a new SUP for 8129 Scion Road. So the request is a new SUP to allow an office showroom / warehouse use in PD 366 Subdistrict 1. This is located at 8129 Scion Road. It's located within PD 366 Subdistrict 1, the Buckner Boulevard Special Purpose District, on approximately 1.259 acres in Council District 5. Here you can see the location map in southern Dallas. And here are the surrounding uses. To the north, there's a self-storage use. To the east, there's an auto repair use, as well as the south. And to the west, there is a drive-through restaurant use and retail. Currently, it's a pawn shop there. So this, once again, here is the zoning map. So the background, the purpose of the request is to allow for an office showroom and warehouse use. The use is allowed within the PD with an SUP, and they're requesting a 2-year period with auto renewal eligibility for additional 5-year periods. here's some site photos. This is on the site looking north. And that existing building will remain in use. This is from Cyan looking west. This is from Cyan looking east. Here is the site plan up to the north portion of the property. That's the existing warehouse that I mentioned in the site photos. And then they will be constructing a new showrooms office to the southern portion, as well as a new private drive on the site. Is the site plan enlarged? And staff recommendation is approval for a 2-year period with automatic renewals for additional 5-year period subject to conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? No questions. Thank you very much. Let's pick up case number 8, commissioners.
Case is also mine. So
Thank you, sir.
So this is case number Z234135. It is also a new SUP. It's located at 518 South Riverfront Boulevard. So the request is for a new SUP for an alcoholic beverage establishment, bar, or tavern. It's located on the northeast line of South Riverfront Boulevard. It's located within PD 784. It's approximately 2,400 square feet in Council District 1. Location of the map is here. The aerial map and surrounding uses, it is connected to, there's a liquor store just to the northwest and an auto repair use to the southeast, and directly across the riverfront there is another bar as well as some retail. Here's the zoning map. Request details, this is the purpose of the request is to allow for an alcoholic beverage establishment, bar, or tavern on the site. And the request is for approval of the SUP for a 5-year period. Auto renewals are not allowed within this PD. Here's on the site looking north. Site looking, excuse me, I believe that the map there is incorrect. I can update that, but this is on the site. So that's on the site looking southwest. And then this is on the site looking directly east, actually. So here's the site plan for here. So the area of request is in red on the map. And this is an enlarged site plan. And staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period subject to site plan and conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners? Any questions on this item? Commissioner Hall?
This is nestled up at the intersection of I-30 and I-35. Are there any single-family or multifamily anywhere close to this?
There are not, no.
If there are single-family, multifamily, they'd be across the river. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Let the record reflect that Commissioner Sleeper joined us at 10:19. Good morning. Commissioners, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's be back online at 10:30. Commissioner Sleeper, in your honor, sir. Be back online at 10:30. Commissioners, we're going to be back on the record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We do have a quorum, commissioners. We are back on the. Are we recording, sir? Okay, we are recording. Commissioners, case number 9 will be held under advisement till May 16th. Case number 10 will be held under advisement till April 4th. And that takes us to case number 11, which I think has been briefed before. Is that correct? Is there any updates that we need to know about? Okay. All right. That takes us to case number 12. I don't remember. Has that been briefed before? It has been briefed before? Okay. Commissioners, any questions, any updates on number 12 that we need to know about? No updates? We okay with not? Okay. Takes us to number 13, which is going to be held under advisement till April 4th. Number 13 is, yeah. Takes us to, pardon me?
Until April 4th, especially with this Forward Dallas. We'll be studying the Forward Dallas.
At this point, 2 cases. Yeah, 2 cases and 1 to the May 16th.
Okay. 9 was to April 4th, too?
9 was to May 16th. 9 May 16th, 10 April 4th, and 13 April 4th.
On 10, can we, I'm sorry, we
sir.
need maybe a little bit more time. Can we make it to 18?
You bet?
Yes, thank you.
May 2nd, is that what you said?
Sure.
No,
18th, April 18th, April 18th.
April 18th,
Yes.
okay. Oh, did I have the wrong date? We don't meet April 14th?
Is there an 18th meeting?
Whoops.
Oh, there's no 18th
Oh,
meeting.
sorry, my
Gotcha.
apologies.
Early May, May 2nd.
May 2nd, okay. So we'll move number 10, will be held under advisement till May 2nd. That takes us to number 11 is okay, 12 is okay, 13 held under advisement till April 4th. Takes us to number 14. This case will be briefed today, and we will take public input, but I believe will be held under advisement to May 2nd. Yeah, 14, yes. 14 will be briefed today. We'll take public input, and will be held under advisement till May 2nd. That takes us to you, Mr. Pepe. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good morning. This is Z223141. This is located in Preston Center. And it's an application for a new sub-area on property zone tract 3 within PD 314, Preston Center Special Purpose District. And this is bound by Luther, Westchester, Berkshire, and Douglas. It's 4.5 acres. And purpose of the request is to allow for modified development standards primarily related to floor area ratio, height, design standards, and mixed income housing to develop the site with residential, retail, and office uses. Here is the site as it exists today, right in the middle of Preston Center. Here's our obliques for this one. I think it's really important in a built-up area like Preston Center. Everything in the small blue outline is within the area of request, office high-rise, retail blocks, the kind of built-up retail mall, and then a parking garage or 2 along with that. Then around the site, retail and personal service uses and office uses to the north. There's retail and personal service uses to the east, as well as the structured parking garage. There's retail and personal service to the southeast. There's an office high-rise with structured parking directly to the south. And there's an office high-rise to the west across Douglas. And so PD 314 was created in 1989, and it is a multi-level retail center with associated parking garage, several restaurants, 10-story office building, associated structured parking. And they do intend to replace the retail and office building on the southern part in the near term in this proposal. And it does include the northern and southern halves of the parcel. So the conditions and development standards include consideration of redevelopment of both of those, including the northern part. The development plan depicts an office tower and multifamily tower with ground floor retail on the southern portion. And they are requesting additional floor area ratio and height. And they are requesting a new sub-area within Tract 3, tying it to a mixed income housing bonus. Staff recommendation is for a different percentage of MIH than the applicant's request. The public realm does have significant design standards, increased transparency, sidewalks, reduced driveway widths, and hidden or reduced parking. Let's get to the site. Here it is at Westchester and Luther. This is at Westchester, looking north at the retail that exists today and the head-in parking. Gonna head north up Westchester and then around the block, going down Berkshire, cross back on the street and going, looking west on Berkshire, turning the corner on Douglas, looking south. There's the back parking garage of the retail mall, parking garage entrance to loading area for the existing office tower, circle drive for the office tower that exists today, garage entrance for the office tower and its parking garage, kind of the first facade of that office building. And then the street on Luther, moving east. I don't know, I'm across the street looking north. That's the structured parking facility that exists today along Luther, from across Luther. And moving towards, there's a small alley there. There is additional first floor retail near the corner of Luther and Westchester, moving east. Now getting down to surrounding uses, that's directly south of this site. It's built out as ground floor retail. Looking east across Westchester, looking east, the structured parking facility, looking northeast at more of the retail and parking facility, looking north up Westchester, looking north across Berkshire. That's the intervening street that I can't remember the name of, but it is north of this site. And then looking northwest, fire station near Douglas and Northwest Highway, office tower that's across Douglas, more towers across Douglas, more of that, moving back to the corner of Douglas and Luther, and back to Luther, the South Luther across there where the office tower is. And that's the alley that runs south of this site, perpendicular. Here's the development plan as they proposed it. Well, I'll just move on to the next slide. Yes, in red is the section they plan to redevelop at this time. However, the conditions take into account the northern portion. And as for development standards, we have our existing tract. It's in Tract 3 again. This would be a sub-area within Tract 3. It's based on MU2, generally in terms of uses and a couple of the other development standards, but they overwrite a lot of them with FAR limits, height at 85. RPS applies to that 85, and 100% lot coverage in the base, 6-story in the current story maximum, not including garages, and the dwelling unit density is that of mixed use. The proposed mainly changes the floor area ratio when it's tied to mixed income housing. It sets a 1.0 FAR minimum for that FAR to achieve the full build out of 4.5, and they request 225 as their maximum height when the MIH is included. However, they're subject to RPS, so a significant portion of the site as you move from north to south is limited by RPS more than anything, and 25 is only the max height they can reach on the southernmost portion of the property. Lot coverage remains the same. They took off the story maximum to build that height in portions. Design standards I will go through. Sidewalks a minimum of 7 obstructed feet with the average width of 10 feet. They have to have vertical delineation between drive areas and sidewalks, which are little buffers of either bollards or landscaping, distinct crossings. Surface parking is prohibited. Either building or 42-inch screening must be built around the garages. They have the 4.1107 parking minimums. Open space, this is updated from the previous posting, so I'll get to that later, but they are required to have 2,000 square foot contiguous open space adjacent to public right-of-way with a minimum depth of 10 feet, and there's an update to that I'll get to in later slides. Fences are prohibited between facades at the property line above 4 feet. Any units on the ground floor have to have access to the sidewalk. Transparency is required to be evenly spaced throughout the structure on each street-facing facade with a 50% minimum. Driveway widths and numbers are limited. Some text on that. Building entries, primary building entries need to be visible from the street. Street furniture was added into this text. Pedestrian scale lighting is built into the base of PD 314. Landscape islands, specific language for landscape islands being added on Westchester have been added, one for every 10 spaces. So as it goes up Westchester, there has to be new landscape islands that don't exist today, breaks up that head-in parking with additional landscaping. And the underlying PD, it requires street trees within the special amenities zone, as well as Article 10, and outdoor lighting. There are additional limits on it from the base that say how high it can and can't be, but it must be shielded and generally has to be less than 24 feet in the outdoor lighting. Beyond that, they require 40,000 square foot of ground floor retail in total. All of Westchester frontage needs to be activated by such street activating uses. The 40,000 could be spread throughout, but it is pretty high to meet that full frontage, so a lot of it will have to be focused over there. Streetscape improvements. This is in regards to the Preston Center area plans. We did evaluate that as part of the recommendation, looking at including streetscape improvements that were achieved here, among other things. Streetscape enhancements, street furniture, crosswalk improvements are provided for within this site, and healthy mix of uses, including supporting more density, building height and floor area ratio as part of the zoning process, provided RPS is still met. That's what the plan calls for. Making sure we still have a certain degree of ground floor retail and activated streets. Still calls for that on the Westchester frontage and throughout. Publicly accessible open space or integrated in development. They have contiguous open space requirements, and as well as the base PD has a point system for open space, for landscaping, things like that in the street frontage. So as for the bonus itself, they did request 5% at 81 to 100 AMI. That would, if included, that would get them the 85 feet to the 225 feet maximum minus RPS. So the absolute maximum is 225, but it's limited throughout the site. And then the 2.0 to 4.5 FAR bonus allows more buildable floor area. I did include the typical bonuses for MU3. It's kind of a similar analog because it has floor area ratio as its primary bonusing mechanism. And so as such, staff recommendation was 5, 5, and 5 at 51, 61, and 81. I was asked to quickly have comparisons handy for MIHDB and type 2s that are nearby the area. We looked at a couple different sites throughout the time, and that staff recommendation is pretty consistent. Council approved is not necessarily the same. They do have those handy. There are a couple different MVAs throughout the area, but the immediate Preston Center area is MVA-A. I can detail those more if there's questions, but I won't dwell too much on it.
Mr. Pepe, sorry, can you go back one slide?
Yes, this is PD15.
Lots of acronyms there on there. Just
I would
walk us through one, please. Just walk us through
Yeah,
and
so
then the
this
baseline.
PD 15 had a base 90% or 90 dwelling units per acre, and they'd get that additional 10% dwelling units per acre if they had 5% of their units at 51 to 60. Then it would increase basically to 30 additional units per acre, 35 per acre, as they added a 5% in there. So that was the staff recommendation. Ultimately, what they put in the city council ordinance was 90 dwelling units per acre, plus 10 if they reach that 5, similar to the staff, but then they get 30 if they include 5 additional. There's not an additional tier beyond that in that ordinance, PD 15.
So the city council approved 5 or 10?
Yeah, 5 or 10, increasing in intensity as you go up, but they didn't approve the highest tier that staff recommended. So there's just not as much density in that situation.
Thank you.
And then looked at 2020, this one in MVAA. This is in the same census block group as a subject site. This one was, I wish I could remember the name of the development, but this is off of Douglas, west of Douglas and Colgate, northwest corner, mixed-use project. Staff recommended an increase in height, 20 feet in that case, if they had the 51 to 60 at 5%, 5% at 61 to 80. It's not a gigantic bonus, it's 20 feet, but it was necessary to complete their project, I understand, as they were proposing it. That height bonus wasn't acted on by city council. They instead changed it to a lot coverage bonus. They only had 5%, 51 to 60, but we do get that lowest income group. The lowest income group is called out there in the 51 to 60. The residential floor area, they had an increase in residential floor area. That PD is a little odd because it calls out specific floor areas for specific uses, but I did kind of break it down into 0.1 FAR, which is 2% if they had 2% of the units, so it's a smaller bonus, but it gives them a 0.1 FAR bonus for both of the primary multifamily and the retirement housing use. And
very helpful, thank you.
That one's about 235 units. This is the case directly to the south, heard in 2020 as well. They had a significant more height bonus built in, and I made a table. So that one is also kind of a tiered system rather than a flat bonus, but the staff recommendation is listed in the table, and that would tier up. This is the one at, this is at Luther in Westchester, this one, southwest corner. And their height, what eventually was approved was 270 to 350 if they had 2.5 and 2.5 at 61 and 80 and 81 to 100 respectively. And lot coverage increases that kind of mirrors that as well, so I think it would double count. And then the unit count was also tied to it. But ultimately, it was a 2.5, but that's not the direction staff took in recommending it, had a higher recommendation. But they did end up with 350-foot height, should they provide the bonus. Okay. I did do design standards for those, kind of a comparison in text. It's always a little apples to oranges. So I can detail individual ones of those. If desired, I do find that 141 has significant design standards that are included both in the base PD and in the specific text regarding this. 141 actually...
Mr. Chair, could you make that a little bit larger, Mr. Pepe? It is minuscule on our screen, and I understand it's a lot of data, but I'm having a really hard time seeing it.
Commissioner Hampton actually just took a picture of the screenshot. I was zooming in. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think we're going to have monitors here at our next hearing. But thank you for that.
Thank you. Or Mr. Pepe, if you just want to circulate it, that may be
I
more
sure am working
beneficial.
on it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think this was in the distributed PowerPoint, I hope. The online presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Herbert.
It is there, and if we can talk about details, I'd love to, but I'm having trouble myself displaying it how I'd like. But it's obviously apples to oranges sometimes with design standards. You may put different value on different items, but Steph is satisfied with the design standards that were reached with our 141 case. But I was asked to have these ready to compare. I think it may be useful. And then, yeah, what I'm highlighting here was the change from the previous posting, and that was volunteered by the applicant. We did have the ability to put it into the docket in the reposting, and that one is talking about there's definitely a minimum 2,000 contiguous open space on Luther. The remainder of that would need to be provided on Berkshire in the event of redevelopment of that. So it kind of leaves it for the possibility of a significantly larger open space on Luther, but then still provides incentive to put it in on Berkshire. They also have open space requirements under the landscape plan, achieving points through the points system. And yeah, sometimes those mega text slides are for me to answer questions and go back and refer to when I need to answer things in detail for you guys. But it is in the distributed copy, I believe. Okay. So if we're good with that for now until questions, I will move on. I'll remind us of where the applicant request and the staff recommendation are, the 5 at 81 to 100, and then the 5, 5, and 5 of staff in keeping with the base ordinance for mixed income housing development in an MVAA. And then those are my numbers for floor area ratio. They'd have to have about 200,000 square foot of residential at a very minimum. And then 2.0, what they can build out today is almost 400,000 square feet. 4.5 is 880,000 square feet in 4.5. There's not a limit to how much, there's not a residential cap on how much of that 4.5 can be residential. The height greater than 85 also requires the use of a bonus, but the bonus, unlike the one to the south, does not absolve them of residential proximity slope. And then I did detail this briefly, but the language may be important to some. And that's also posted in the docket and in the distributed PowerPoint. So approval is subject to development plan and staff's recommended conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pepe. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Mr. Pepe, from the staff report, it seems clear that the intent is to require 40,000 square feet of street activating uses, which the report says is going to be retail. But the way street activating uses is defined in this PD, that also includes lodging. So it would be possible, by the way this PD is written, that no retail whatsoever would have to be on this site. It could be an office building, it could be a hotel, as long as it was 1.0 residential somewhere, there could be no retail whatsoever.
Street activating uses, yes, is a definition defined by the PD that we leaned on in this circumstance. It does include the lodging use. So that is something that, in my opinion, it does achieve the street activating goal of what we're looking for. It isn't specifically to retail. There could be language that changes that, but in that situation, we use the street activating uses definition that's built into the PD, with the understanding that it does have a higher level of activity at a street than would office uses, but they have to have the entire frontage of Westchester be that, and then somewhere they have to find 4,000 square foot on the ground floor to put in those uses.
But those 40,000 square feet could be a lodging use, according to the definition in the PD. I mean, let me ask it another way. Was there any consideration given to redefining street activating uses for this tract? That seems like it would solve the problem and eliminate lodging as a street activating use if the intention is to keep the retail character of those blocks around the parking garage?
Couple questions there. Yeah, but no, consideration specifically wasn't given to redefining lodging use. I see where you say that it would solve that particular issue. We do think that lodging use is still beneficial as a street activating use, but if it'd be pretty easy text edit if you wanted it only to be retail or personal service use, because retail and personal service use category is pretty broad.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Pepe, thank you. I guess there's a few things I'd just like to get a clarification on. 4,000 square feet of street activation doesn't represent the entire street level space open to the public, though, does it? I mean, it doesn't include outdoor seating for restaurants and things like that.
Just to be sure, are we talking about the 40,000 square foot of street activating uses or 4,000 square feet of open space at ground level? But they got to find room for both of those, but they're different requirements.
Well, where is the 4,000 square feet? And this is just going to illustrate my ignorance of urban design standards, but where is the 4,000 square feet?
The 4,000 square feet per the condition needs to be located adjacent to a public right-of-way, and a significant portion of it has to be contiguous with a minimum depth. So it would be things like landscaping areas, plaza areas that are adjacent to public right-of-way. They may have open space that are that's private that they include. But this has to be adjacent to public right-of-way, directly accessible. So certainly at the property line.
So if they had restaurants on the ground floor and those restaurants had outdoor seating, would they be would that?
I would not say typically, because that's in a structure and it's not open space. I would assume not, that doesn't count towards them. It has to be publicly accessible open space. And these have to be contiguous. They have to have a minimum depth of 10 feet. It's certainly not going to count anything like a patio that's covered in a private space, like a leased restaurant or anything like that. This also has a minimum of 15% of it needs to be landscaped at a minimum. Which would be unlikely to be included in a patio or for a patio restaurant. I mean, think of it today. I can't even remember what restaurants are in there today, but they're not going to be able to count. They're not going to be able to count the roti. Is it roti patio as an open space? Just due to how they interpret and yeah. Not such as that. They do need to set it aside when they submit for permit on their site plans as particular open space. They review for that to make sure that it is open space, not private. True, not private space is the wrong word, but the leased space for a business.
Okay. Maybe it'll become clear to me in the future, but okay, I get it. Going back to your comparison slide, and this is the 2020 case, Z190-238. That property is directly across the street from this development, isn't it? And that property is actually split up between two separate owners and developers.
Yeah, they have two zoning sub areas with slightly different regulations, but fairly similar nonetheless. So yes, it is split up.
And on the site that's currently occupied by the Hopdoddy, right there at the intersection, there's going to be a 285-foot tower. And then immediately adjacent to it is going to be a 350-foot tower. Okay.
That's my understanding, and those are part of the bonus that they built in back then. Mhm.
And our applicant is requesting a 225-foot tower.
225-foot, yes, is their maximum height. I understand that this proposal, the other proposal, the south went above residential proximity slope, whereas this one is still bound by residential proximity slope. So 225 is their maximum, but it's going to have to slope downwards toward Northwest Highway.
Yeah, correct. Okay.
So the height would be located, the tallest part of this is going to be, would have to be located the closest point to this property that was rezoned previously south of Luther.
Okay, thank you. And, oh, yeah, one final sort of a technical question is 42 inches on the above-grade parking garage to block, that's some sort of blockage for a light that might be coming from parked cars or something?
42 inches, yes, is the standard that's used in our 4.1107 citywide parking garage screening ordinance. So they either has to be blocked with that kind of screen if they have any portion of garage that faces street face, or it has to be a building. So that's what the 42 inches is, because it's a common city design standard.
Could it be open above that?
Yes.
And it was pointed out to me that there are some vehicles on the road today that have lights that are at 45 inches or...
That's scary, but yes, yes.
And that those lights could conceivably be shining into the residential building across the street.
That's possible. So the number is not immutable for the purposes of this case.
We don't need to bump that up to 50 inches or anything like that?
Well, I'm saying that it's not immutable. It can be changed through text here. We recommended 42 because it's the standard we hold most mixed income development to across the city based on that design standard. But it's very feasible to change that to a different height. But 42 is what we have to compare to, which is why we have that number in this PD. I will not. It would not be difficult for you to change that through motion or through the applicant's assent to a higher number.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pepe.
Mr. Pepe, let's stay with height. Pardon me, Commissioner House-Wright. So we have this project, and we have two others that were already entitled, and I think one is already pulling a permit. Is that correct?
I don't know the permit status of these other ones.
So, you know, when we visit the site and when we take a look at this one and we're doing our due diligence on this case, we're kind of, you know, have to imagine the context of the heights in the area. And I'm wondering if you've seen a study or an elevation that puts the ask on this one in comparison or within the context of the others that we've already passed.
I think the applicant may have one of those.
Okay.
There may be a question for the applicant. I think they probably do have that handy. Yeah, and I apologize for that. In my imagination, it's not too hard to picture how their height has to be focused. Obviously, they have to locate that height on the southmost part of their property. Should they even build up to max height? Obviously, no one wants to build I presume no one wants to build a triagonal prism, but should they choose to build that, it does have to be on the southmost part of the site, which kind of mirrors a couple other of the offices and high-rises built out through Preston Center. But yes, the height would have to be located closest to them. I do not have a render, but I'm pretty sure the applicant may.
Okay. Well, that might be an interesting study to see how this potential height fits within the context of not what is there now, but what will be.
Exactly.
Excellent. So we'll look forward to that on May 2nd, potentially from the applicant. Commissioner House-Wright.
Thank you. Mr. Pepe, I came in late, so I apologize if I'm going to backtrack over something. But wanted to talk about parking. As I read the report, I believe that there are a certain number of spaces that can be credited against the existing garage in the middle of Preston Center. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's a baked-in attribute of Tract 3.
Okay. And so was that not part of the two previous zoning cases that Chair Shadid was referring to? In other words, did they have the option? Because I understand those are self-parked, fully self-parked.
Yes, the one to the south, I understand, was in Tract 3. They removed that connection to the base zoning for whatever reason. I can't speculate as to why. But this site continues to have that attribute to it because it's built into the base zoning.
Okay, can you confirm that both of the cases that Chair Shadid was referring to are self-parked?
I think that one, so the one to the south was one case, just for clarity, if I'm not mistaken. They were two sub-areas within one case. I understand they have the full requirement for multifamily uses. I can look up really quickly at some point if they reduced the retail or lodging uses.
So the parking garage, I call the existing parking garage, is on land owned by the City of Dallas, correct?
Yes.
And then there are any number of property owners around that garage that have rights to that garage, correct?
The PD writes in reductions if the garage exists with a certain amount of spaces. I can't speak to any private agreements or any other private restrictions that
So
exist.
to your knowledge, these various property owners, large and small, don't have a specific number of spaces that they have rights to?
I got no information on that if it's a private agreement.
Is that something we could get information on? A little more global look at the parking in Preston Center.
The agreement regarding that governs I guess you're asking about restrictions that govern the parking garage that are outside of the zoning. I don't have information on that. I will confirm if we can find that, but it may be, because it's private, I'm not clear if that's going to be public to us or how that functions.
Well, it's a city-owned piece of land, and so it seems like it can be relevant to this case. I understand that it's outside the specific lines of this application, but you know, if we're charged with in a larger context about this neighborhood and this district, it seems like we need to understand the parking situation a little better, because it's central to, frankly, much of the conflict in Preston Center. And so I, for one, would like to know more about that.
I'll see what we can come up with. Thank you.
Commissioner Hampton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a related question on parking, and I have a handful of other questions. But on the parking, I believe one of your analysis showed that all of the required parking was to be provided underground. I don't see any provisions for that within the proposal before us. Was that something that was considered or discussed with the applicant team?
They have to screen their parking with building or with screening. I did not state that it has to be underground, because it's not the case in the standards written for this case.
And
yes.
so I guess the global question is, how is this consistent with other recent cases within this area?
The case to the south required underground parking.
Okay.
The standards approved with this case, 141, are consistent with the design standards we use for mixed income housing broadly.
Okay. Two other questions. Reading through the Preston Center Northwest area plan, it seemed like one of the drivers in the community discussions was increasing open space, increasing walkability, connectivity within the district. I saw that there's a minimum unobstructed sidewalk of 7 10 average, it looked like 10 was being utilized in other areas. Was there consideration, or I guess, let me say it differently, how was 7 developed? Are there utility conflicts? Is there something that's driving that lower clear area?
7 is what is the unobstructed width here. They use the 10-foot average for throughout that. So they may have what do you call them? Obstructions or encroachments outside of the 7-foot. I will say that the property to the south has 10-foot unobstructed. The base PD uses a different width, but it also leans on an unobstructed distance and then an average distance.
Yeah, I think your summary had 10. I will thank Commissioner Herbert for pointing me to the online, because I pulled it down.
7 and 10, yes.
Okay.
So that's what they are required to do in the base, and that one remains here. It should give them the ability to put in street furniture along the special amenity zone, which the special amenity zone is located back of curb. They did not modify the special amenity zone provision of the base, but it's 3 to 6 feet from back of curb. So the understanding, maybe they need to put examples, furniture or trees within the special amenity zone being 3 to 6 foot from back of curb. So that if you have maybe curb, small amount of one part of the landscaping strip, special amenity zone being located 3 to 6 feet back of curb, I presume that's where you'd have potential obstructions within your 10-foot, but then behind that you have 7 foot of unobstructed, for example.
Okay, I think I'm just trying to understand in the larger context, again, trying to think about how the overall district is intended to work together. It seemed like 7 was maybe trending lower than where we were starting to see development standards go.
Yeah, it is.
Particularly with increased density.
I will just say that it's less than the 10-foot unobstructed in the tract 8. I am not positive how those 10-foot unobstructed interact with the special amenity zone, but I think the special amenity zone being 3 to 6 feet from back of curb may be where they placed their obstructions, being the good kind of obstructions like trees and street furniture, and then behind that they're remaining 7 feet.
So were there any considerations on speaking to the larger connectivity, essentially, what this project is adding to parcels beyond them in terms of, creating plaza areas at intersections, requiring public access points within the building? I think Commissioner Carpenter asked some questions about how the activation was going to happen on the ground level, but there doesn't seem to be strong language about requiring that activation and access points.
We definitely have activation from street activating uses. It leans on the language as we discussed as the base PD. It has the open space requirement as described here. We have the base PD has landscape plans. The landscape plans in the area have to have a base amount of points that also incentivize maybe more particular types of open space scattered throughout that are called for by the plans, small open spaces. Be that 15 points in total that they get for different kinds of landscape areas that they scatter throughout the site, and that amount that they have to provide is a function of the frontage, and this having a large amount of frontage is going to have to include those. We did not get into sites outside of the site, limited greatly by what we can do outside of our site because it's a zoning case, governing the zoning on one property, but we make sure that driveway maximums, sidewalks, crossings, that the flow around the site is still how we want it to be.
Okay, I think I follow that, and I did see the driveway standards. I think that was nice to help address how pedestrians will circulate around the site. You mentioned the percentage of the or the square footage of the open space. Do you know what percentage that is of the lot area?
When this is, that the contiguous, the amount that is required to be contiguous is 2% of the entire lot per the contiguous requirement. That doesn't include necessarily the points that they have to achieve for sites scattered throughout to achieve their 15 points for their landscape plan. This is a fairly dynamic PD in the base, and so we also have that. That overall doesn't have a minimum besides the contiguous spaces and then the points that need to be achieved in the landscape plan.
Okay, and then I think final question related to that is, I know there's varied lot coverages within this, this PD. I understand that track 3 is 100% base, but as we're looking at density, was there any consideration, or has there been in other recent cases in this area where the lot coverage was reduced?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. So a couple things that I'd add to that, and be straightforward that the case of the south, I believe, did limit the lot coverage at a higher height, 60% above, I don't have the height handy, 65% above a certain height as it goes up. I will say, obviously, the base is 100, and lot coverage wasn't looked at for this one. Because for a couple things, I know that this body has seen lot coverage maximums at varying heights, and that those have been used as one tool to say that massing can't be too tall. While one thing that we've heard in feedback from our development services colleagues is that lot coverage is very specifically meant to govern buildings that are on the ground, the building footprint, and that it does get very dicey and difficult for them to measure lot coverages at higher heights. So what I would ask is that if we want to limit things like massing at higher heights, we do it through other means like setbacks. So this feedback has been given to us, and I don't want to impose upon our development standards colleagues things that would be difficult, whereas setbacks, I think things like setbacks, FAR, also serve very similarly to limit lot coverage. And so in the case of this one, your lot coverage is highly limited by RPS. You must decrease, and so again, lot coverage meaning footprint at the ground, but I'm using it in a sense that we can understand here. The amount of massing at height is forced to decrease by the, whether you call it a setback or a height maximum, by the FAR or RPS on this site, as well as FAR. But the RPS acting on this means that your lot coverage decreases linearly as you go up in height. So that, in that case, wasn't a concern here. And I went on the whole thing about development services and lot coverage because I do hope to not use that specific tool. I'm not saying we can't limit height at grade, but I do think that for their sake we should see if we can use other tools than lot coverage specifically. But we're learning how to make their process good as well as make our process good. But I think in this specific scenario, the height or the RPS limitations are going to act well to limit massing at height.
I think my question was more at grade, but I know this will be coming back to us. So I'll look forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Rubin, followed by Commissioner Hall.
Yeah, just a few quick questions about the area plan, Mr. Pepe. We got some correspondence over the weekend talking about the area plan. So I just wanted to make sure that I understand it correctly. One of the things that was suggested is that the area plan itself suggests that the existing height max is what, 85 feet, and nothing should go over that 85 feet. Is that in fact in the area plan, an 85-foot height maximum suggestion?
Obviously, we took that very seriously in looking at this early on because we knew it was an increase in height case. But the area plan, this is specifically from Zone 1. You may find other language in other portions of the area plan because it has several zones, they call them, but this is Zone 1, Preston Center. It does call for more density, building height, and floor area ratios and other land use concessions through the zoning process to encourage Zone 1 property owners to develop residential projects. But they do with the caveat it with proximity slope, but in this case, it's still observed. RPS.
So it's a proximity slope is the way that the area plan suggests.
They say leave,
primarily regulating height.
the plan says please leave RPS in place. It says the city of Dallas should support more density, building height, and floor area ratios in Preston Center.
Okay. Thank you.
Second round, Commissioner Hall, followed by Commissioner Carpenter.
I wanted to clarify a couple of things on the parking. Both of the developments south of this are they're 100% parked, all underground. One has 480 below-grade parking spots, and one has 390. This particular development has two parking situations. One is below grade, I think 2 levels below grade for the office building, and the other is 2 levels above grade for the residential tower. And I don't have a total number of parking spaces for that, but they accept that the applicant has said that the office building would be 100% parked, the residential would be 100% parked, but the retail would be utilizing the parking garage.
Is that correct, Mr. Pepe?
That is my understanding from what they've stated.
That was my understanding as well. Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes, I want to go back to, to compliance with the area plan, because as the sentence you read, it says the plan recommends the city of Dallas support more density, height, floor to area ratios, and other land use concessions through the zoning process to encourage Zone 1 property owners to develop residential projects where commercial office could be built by right. Now, in this particular case, they're going up, they had almost 400,000 square feet of development rights before. They're going up to 884, or almost 900. And the residential at 1.0 FAR is 196,500 square feet. So let's say 200,000. So they've got 900,000 overall square feet of development rights, and only 200,000 have to be residential. So this is a project that is really proposed to be 3/4 commercial. So was there any consideration given to a higher residential component for this? Because it seems to me that the plan says explicitly that they were willing to make all of these concessions to get residential where office could be. So is a project that is 75% office meeting the standard?
Thank you for that. Yes, the minimum 1% FAR is merely a minimum. It doesn't box anyone into what their total ratios are going to be. But that is the minimum to reach up to the 4.5 maximum. So 200,000 square feet of residential does need to be included to do that at a very minimum. By no means does it dictate what their total FAR has to be. I would say that the FAR of the FAR where we have 4.5 to 1 is in keeping with mixed-use districts. In other places across the city, we do have to have something to compare to, where this is a fairly common thing where they will have maybe a 4.5 ratio where you can get up to that if you have a minimum of 1. One is, that's for example, Oak Lawn has a number of commercial mixed-use districts that that is the case, and they incentivize it, and it's calibrated to that 4.5 to 1, as well as the mixed-use projects in a mixed-use base. Those mixed-use districts, so this is MU2 base, those ones require 10% residential floor area to get to achieve their full FARs in MU2 and MU3. So I think it's in keeping with those because we do try to keep to a standard because we have nothing else to compare to besides the zoning throughout the city. So what I will say is one is consistent, for example, with the incentives and minimums they put in for residential in Oak Lawn, as well as the mixed use 2 and 3, which are our most built out mixed use districts that we have to compare to. Thank you.
I understand your point about mixed-use projects across the city, but it seems to me this particular area plan is kind of putting its thumb on the scale pretty heavily, wanting to encourage residential, more residential as opposed to office. So, thank you.
Yes, and I do certainly recognize that, but we are trying to keep to something to compare to. Anytime we were at plan development, just rewriting the zoning, I do feel strongly we have to work with something to compare to, a standard, and I do find that we try and encourage residential in other mixed-use districts as we do here. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hall?
And please tell me if I say
That's fine.
Regarding the 85-foot height thing, the way I read this area plan, that is not mentioned in Zone 1, which is the Preston Center, the garage. It does say in Zone 1 the city should encourage density and height, but in accordance with the residential proximity slope. The 85-foot thing is applied to Zone 4, which is the area that I live in, and is basically a condominium area. And so they don't want condominium and developments in that area to exceed 85 feet in height.
Yes, great point. Yeah, the zones throughout are different. And yeah, Zone 4, I think also has, I think they call for, it's either 4 or 6 stories. And that's pretty consistent with the 85 feet that you're referring to. But yeah, 85 is not mentioned in the area plan in regards to Zone 1.
Any last questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pepe. Commissioners, let's table perhaps the most interesting case on the docket, which is number 15. We will come back to that one and go to case number 16. Mr. Brown, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. George, are you going to give me a presentation, or do you want me to do it off the other laptop?
Share that up there. Share.
Yeah, very good. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here today to present case Z212349, which is the proposed South Winnetka Heights Conservation District. This was initiated by a neighborhood committee The request is a City Plan Commission authorized hearing seeking a recommendation regarding a proposal to change the zoning classification from R75A Single Family Zoning District to the South Winnetka Heights Conservation District. I do want to point out sort of the difference in language from it being initiated by a neighborhood committee and why we're calling this a City Plan Commission authorized hearing. That is outlined in Section 51A 4.505 D3F Conservation Districts. Once we verify petitions, this process is treated as a CPC authorized hearing. The purpose is to provide a means of conserving the area's distinctive character by protecting or enhancing its physical attributes. This area is located in Council District 1, Southwest Dallas. The proposed conservation district is generally bounded by 12th Street to the north, Edgefield Avenue to the west, Brooklyn Avenue on the south, and an alley located east of Willamette Avenue and a portion of Polk Street to the east. The area is approximately 16.3 acres. The current zoning is R75A. The current land use is single-family residential. I'll point out that to the north, south, and to the west are all single-family residential, except for the Griner Exploratory Academy. To the east, we do have some neighborhood commercial and office uses. And then I also want to point out on this map, in the northwest corner there, Arts Mission Oak Cliff. This is the facility that all of the neighborhood meetings took place in, just for proximity to the neighborhood. There are numerous nearby conservation and historic districts. Most notably, just to the north is the Winnetka Heights Historic District and National Register District. That is a locally designated historic district. I'll point out on the right-hand side the map of the original Winnetka Heights addition, and you'll notice that the area that we are discussing today was actually part of that original neighborhood plat. Also pointing out the continuous nature of the CDs and historic districts to the north in proximity to our proposed area today. Surrounding area, Griner Exploratory Academy is just on the other side of Edgefield from the proposed area. We do see the community center and residential commercial, a neighborhood commercial just adjacent to the east of the proposed area. These are some sort of scene setting shots from within the proposed boundaries. I'll point out we'll feature those stamped concrete sidewalks showing the date of construction, all within the 19 teens. Here we are, South Edgefield Avenue, South Clinton Avenue, South Winnetka, South Willamette. These are the reasons why South Winnetka Heights should become a conservation district. It fulfills the purpose of a conservation district. It's the result of a neighborhood-initiated process, meets the eligibility criteria outlined for a conservation district, is consistent with the West Oak Cliff Area Plan and the City Comprehensive Plan, contains largely intact examples of early 20th century architecture, and the conservation district would provide an appropriate regulatory structure for the area. Here's the purpose of a conservation district outlined in 51A. It's to protect the physical attributes of an area or neighborhood, promote development or redevelopment that is compatible with the existing area or neighborhood, promote economic revitalization, enhance livability of the city, and ensure harmonious, orderly, and efficient growth. This process was first initiated when the Neighborhood Committee engaged the city in August of 2019 before formally requesting pre-application meetings in August of 2020. There were 2 pre-application meetings held with the neighborhood to outline the process and discuss potential architectural standards that could be included on the petition that would be circulated around the neighborhood to initiate. Of course, petitions were distributed in July of 21. Roughly a year later, 71 petitions were submitted by the neighborhood committee for city to verify. Ultimately, 76% of the residents or property owners within the proposed boundaries did sign the petition to initiate the process. So between September of 22 and March of 23, the city hosted 10 neighborhood meetings to discuss all of the topics that were outlined on the petition that was circulated to the neighborhood. December 2023, we posted the draft ordinance that is part of your packet, and then held 2 neighborhood meetings to review the draft with the residents in January of this year. So in order to initiate this, they had to submit meet the criteria of a determination of eligibility, and that is that the area contains at least one block face. The area is either stable or stabilizing as defined in the ordinance. That essentially means that the area is not experiencing significant change in the last 20 years, nor are we expecting it to in the, or that we are not expecting it to in the coming 20 years. The area is compact and contiguous with boundary lines drawn to the logical edges of an area or subdivision. That could be a creek, street, subdivision line, easement, zoning boundary line, or other boundary. At least 75% of the lots have to be developed with main buildings that are at least 25 years old, and the area has physical attributes that include recognizable architectural styles. So we feel that the proposed district is consistent with objectives outlined in the 2006 comprehensive plan. When we talk about the land use, strengthens existing neighborhoods and promotes a neighborhood's unique characteristics. We promote strong and distinctive neighborhoods to enhance Dallas quality of life, and then maintain neighborhood scale and character, promote the character of the city's significant districts, linkages, and areas. In addition, it also meets the goals outlined in the West Oak Cliff Area Plan, which was adopted in 2022, which provides the long-range vision for land use within the West Oak Cliff area. And in that plan, under the land use and development implementation goals, we have to preserve and protect existing single-family neighborhoods, and then, of course, to preserve historic buildings and character through neighborhood-sensitive design. The area features predominantly 2 architectural styles that we've identified as craftsman and transitional bungalow. Of the 95 houses located within the proposed boundaries, 59 of those were identified as craftsman, 25 as traditional bungalow, 8 were undefined. One important note is of the 95 structures in the proposed district, 95% of those are single-story dwellings. According to DCAD and the determination of eligibility submitted, the average age of homes in this area was 95 years in 2019. You see the vast majority of those are going to be prior to 1940. State law authorized the City of Dallas to regulate the construction, alteration, reconstruction, or raising of buildings and other structures in, quote, designated places and areas of historic, cultural, or architectural importance and significance. Conservation districts are intended to provide a means of conserving an area's distinctive character by protecting or enhancing its physical attributes. Conservation districts are different than a historic overlay district, which preserves historic residential or commercial structures, while neighborhood stabilization overlay districts, which preserve single-family neighborhoods by imposing specific yard, lot, and space regulations that reflect the existing character of the neighborhood. And then, of course, planned development districts, which provide flexibility in planning and construction while protecting contiguous land uses and significant features. One important note is that the conservation district does become the base zoning for the area. It's not an overlay. So these are the themes that we heard in the process of meeting with neighbors, that they wanted to preserve architectural characteristics, mainly of their craftsman-style homes, wanted to avoid incompatible form and massing of new development, retain the feel of the neighborhood and its development, historic development patterns, wanted to allow for flexibility and individuality in remodeling, allow for two-story homes, and to make sure that the ordinance would not retroactively apply to houses that already exist in the area. So this slide outlines the meetings and the petition items that were discussed throughout the process. There's more detail in the case report regarding the specific discussion items regarding these topics. This outlines the 10 meetings that were held from the end of 2022 through spring of 23, and then we presented we had 2 meetings to present the draft ordinance to the neighbors. As part of those meetings, we had several methods of gathering feedback. The first of those, of course, was the meeting discussions, where we took notes throughout the course of the meeting. We also provided comment sheets like the one you see on the right hand of the slide for those in attendance to provide feedback or ask questions for clarification for the upcoming meeting. We asked the residents to look at the neighborhood around them and sort of come back to us with what they're seeing in terms of the character and the things that they felt were important to them in preserving. Of course, we provided staff contact for any questions as well. And because of the number of Spanish-speaking residences within the area, we did have on-site real-time Spanish interpreters for every meeting that was held. So what we heard from the neighborhood was that the status quo was insufficient, that the current code really would not keep incompatible development from coming into the area, that they wanted to preserve the character that exists largely intact within the neighborhood since its inception. They did feel that there had to be some additional standards implemented in order to maintain the characteristics of the neighborhood and meet their overall desire to protect it, and that a CD with development architectural standards was the route that they wanted to go. The ordinance is made up of 2 parts, the ordinance itself, which includes the development architectural standards, and then a conceptual plan where it outlines perhaps some additional clarifying information about the process, and as well as the architectural and developmental requirements. This is an example of some of the developmental requirements. There was a focus on maintaining the historic development patterns as it pertained to setbacks, lot coverage, building height. And then we go on to illustrate several of those concepts. This slide specifically pertains to how the front yard setback might be calculated, which differs considerably from obviously the base zoning, but also how in order to maintain the character, which had porches that almost line up in a single straight line, would be maintained by taking an average of the 2 adjacent properties specific to the porch, which also differs from how city staff currently calculates front yard setbacks. When we talk about the craftsman style, I'll point to you, common themes such as roof pitch, roof form, the eave width, also the porches themselves. Windows are another character-defining element that is addressed in the architectural standards. In addition, there are some required architectural features that can be selected. We ask that you incorporate at least 5 of the 10 that are listed on this slide. These are elements that can be sort of mixed and matched to create your own unique craftsman style structure while also keeping to the architecture that's found within the district. Oop. I'm going to go back. Many of these are going to be illustrated as well in the conceptual plan. For example, the ganged windows with the vertical wood mullions separating them, which is typical of buildings of the period of this area. The exposed rafter tails, sometimes with decorative sawn elements, dental molding. Another distinct feature of the craftsman style homes in this area is that battered or sloped skirting. The other predominant style is the transitional bungalow, again noting the roof form, roof eaves, as well as the porch features and windows. Similar to the craftsman style, if new construction is being built, it must incorporate at least 4 of the 8 features outlined here for a transitional bungalow. Again, providing those illustrations in order to maybe convey the information in a way that those, of course, we would hope they would just look around the neighborhood, but we did provide some guidance in form of illustration in the conceptual plan. So in summary, this proposed ordinance is a result of a neighborhood-initiated and guided process for establishing a conservation district. The proposed area does meet the eligibility that is set out in the Dallas Development Code. It is consistent with the goals prescribed in the West Oak Cliff Area Plan and the city's comprehensive plan. The proposed development architectural standards will help to conserve the distinctive character of the neighborhood by providing or enhancing its physical attributes, and that a conservation district is the appropriate regulatory instrument to accomplish these goals for the city of Dallas and the neighborhood. Staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions of the South Winnetka Heights Conservation District zoning ordinance and conceptual plan. The proposed development architectural standards will help to conserve the distinctive character of the neighborhood by protecting or enhancing its physical attributes. The recommendations are also, again, consistent with the goals outlined in the West Oak Cliff Area Plan and the Forward Dallas 2006 Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Questions, commissioners? Mr. Rubin, please.
I had a question on how the Conservation District Ordinance treats ADUs. So right now, this is R75 zoning, right?
Correct.
And there are 2 types of ADUs. There are accessory dwelling units and there are additional dwelling units, right?
Correct.
And the main difference, and perhaps the only difference between accessory dwelling units and additional dwelling units, is that you have to further deed restrict an additional dwelling unit so it can't be rented out, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Whereas an accessory dwelling unit can be rented out, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the way that you get either type of ADU in an R75 district today is you can go to the Board of Adjustment, right?
That's correct.
And they can say, an accessory dwelling unit makes sense here. No, let's just go with an additional dwelling unit here, right?
I think it's dependent on what's deemed, suitable in the public interest of the neighborhood, and also what the request is by the applicant.
Sure. And there's also the overlay option that a neighborhood can come together and allow it by ADUs by overlay, right?
Correct.
Okay. In transitioning from R75 to this conservation district, the option for going to the Board of Adjustment for an accessory dwelling unit is no longer on the table, right?
Correct. It's now for an additional dwelling unit.
Only an additional one that can't be rented out to a third party.
Correct.
Okay. So why was that decision made here if we have a Board of Adjustment process currently which can take into account, community concerns about whether, an ADU should be rentable or not?
Sure. So as previously mentioned in the presentation, this is a neighborhood-initiated and neighborhood-driven process. And so this was the discussion that neighbors had with city staff. Our role is then to take what the neighbors want in their district and then put it into the document for consideration. And so there was, this particular issue was discussed at 4 of the 12 meetings. That includes the 2 draft meetings. So it was discussed, I wouldn't say at length, but certainly it was a lively discussion.
Sure. So essentially, the staff is the scrivener here, just taking in input, and it got the direction to do no accessory dwelling units, only allowing additional dwelling units. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
And what was the rationale for not even allowing Board of Adjustment to consider an application for an accessory dwelling unit that was given in these meetings?
Well, some of that could have been because obviously similar language does appear in existing conservation districts, and so neighbors probably had access to that, and staff probably presented certain options in regards to that, including discussing ADUs by right, I'll point out. But there were some concerns. Of course, this was all at the height of the short-term rental discussions that were going on. And so I think the neighbors themselves wanted to control that situation or perceived situation as much as possible.
And neighbors are free to go to the Board of Adjustment when there's an accessory dwelling unit application and say, no, let's just downgrade this to an additional dwelling unit, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Kingston.
What are the what's it transitioning from?
So we're seeing sort of from the Queen Anne period of, the 1880s to 19-teens, and we start to see them picking up more of the craftsman style attributes. These two styles, as you can see in the photos, are very similar, but do have distinct differences. Primarily the roof form. Most craftsman style structures are going to be a gabled, front-facing gable, where the transitional bungalows are going to be a hipped roof predominantly, often featuring either a centered dormer or some sort of a recessed subordinate gable just off the porch. Again, they're very similar. Like a lot of architectural styles, we're going to see some sort of blurring as we go between periods. And so, as we demonstrated in those concrete stamps when the neighborhood was developing in the 19-teens, we're again sort of transitioning from sort of that colonial, Queen Anne, maybe neoclassical, into the adopting more of a craftsman style form.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter.
Mr. Brown, excuse me. First of all, I want to commend you for the very high quality of your presentation and your report. It was a pleasure to read. I see that there are only 4 homes that are non-contributing here. They've been built since 1940 outside the period of significance. Is that correct?
Well, I think there are actually a few more that are considered non-contributing. I think it was maybe 8 total. And part of that may be not necessarily a period of significance. There are a handful of new homes, for example, but there may have been a series of remodelings that did not fall sort of within the parameters of what was outlined for the 2 predominant styles.
Okay. You didn't by any chance have photographs of the new construction homes?
Let's see.
Because I see in the report that there are only 5 two-story homes in the area, and 4 of those were built later.
So we should see them in some of these streetscapes. So in that streetscape at the top of the slide, that is a new construction home. I think that was built within the last 4 or 5 years. And then, where is, I saw Mike's, and then in the lower left-hand corner, that is actually the original transitional 4-square.
Mm-hmm.
The other two-story structures are, I believe, on the corner of Willamette and 12th Street. One an original that had been remodeled to become a little bit more Spanish in character, stuccoed tile roof, and then another that tends to lean more towards sort of a Queen Anne farmhouse, for lack of a better term.
But the district is preserving the right to have two-story houses, just there are regulations as to how those, where they can be placed and what the design
That's
can
correct.
be.
The neighbors expressed a desire to be able to expand to 2 stories, but they also recognize the character of their neighborhood as 95% single-story homes. And so staff brought to them examples that can be found in the blocks surrounding the area of historic construction where second stories are popped up, mainly to the rear of the house. And so staff is recommending that second stories are allowed, but that they will be located on the rear 50% of the main structure.
Okay. One other question. There's a statement in here about if there's access to the garage via an alley, you need a minimum setback of 20 feet to the garage door. Is that an existing condition or just fairly standard language? I know there's been some discussion, I believe it was at ZOAC, on pervious and impervious surfaces to shorten that distance, because now with garage door openers, cars aren't lingering in their driveway, so.
Right. So that was consistent with the current requirements for rear entry garages and for no other reason than that.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown and team. Is Mr. Poole online at the moment? He's not? Okay, commissioners, let's go ahead and take our lunch break. We'll come back and brief the rest of the cases. We have 15 updates on 17, and then the sign case on 18. It's 12:02. That concludes the briefing of the Dallas City Plan Commission. Enjoy your lunch, commissioners.